Perplexing is the question that can't be answered. Curious is our interest, and this captivates our imaginations to the possibilities that went before us. Who built Stonehenge? How was the Great Pyramid construction? And more importantly than anything else, who exactly were the ancient Earthling? There is little doubt that our separation in understanding of the ancient things is because there is a break in the chain of existence between this wave of existence and the last, and also a previous wave beyond that, with this current sitting by our kind being the third wave of human beings emerging as a sophisticated societal culture. Our understanding simply has to change towards the question of who we are if we are to gain insight into the struggles we have faced on this earth. We must learn from the good we have created, but also learn from the bad we have been guilty of inflicting, and as we learn, we can grow into a culture with ignorance slipping away and enlightenment spreading amongst our people. We are either the problem of this planet or the solution to it. Maybe both, but the destiny of our kind is currently in our own hands, but that can change if we don't. Now, one little snippet of lost history that you guys may not be aware of is the effort by a Roman legion to invade ancient parts of the Parthian Empire. They sent this legion to Harran in modern-day Turkey, where they were confronted with men of Greek, Indian, and Chinese origins. These were the men of the Parthian army, and they took captive thousands of Roman troops, settled them in China, and learned the methods of the Roman tactics. The Lost Legion never returned to Europe. It seems they may have thrived as prisoners turned teachers, and this is further backed by DNA taken from some Chinese in a small village 4,000 miles away from Rome, which has been proven to show they are descended from a lost legion of Roman soldiers. Long it has been said that the Romans went to China 53 years before the birth of Jesus Christ. Rome sent an army to squash these so-called barbarians. Thousands of men marched over the treacherous terrain that connects the two regions. No one returned. When the Romans marched to Harran, they thought they were heading to an area occupied by a barbarian civilization, and it would be an easy take for the thousands of soldiers involved. Known at the time as the Parthian Empire, as it stretched as far as India and China, and when this empire needed organizing because of the sheer size and scale, the center of the Parthian Empire became Greece for a period of time. But anyway, the Romans underestimated their abilities, and the famed mounted archers of this great empire shocked the Romans. These elite warriors on horseback became the biggest shock the Romans had ever been faced with. Thousands were killed and thousands were taken prisoner and put to work. And this became known as the Lost Roman Legion, Rome's worst ever military defeat as it is now emerging. The Roman poet Horace had suggested that the remnants of the legions had married Parthians. However, their true fate remained shrouded in mystery. That is, until you consider the following. Homer Dubs, an expert in Chinese studies based at Oxford, has argued that they might have traveled further east than originally thought, potentially several thousand miles further. He says this because it is documented that a few years later, after the battle at Harran, during the siege of a city in China, some mercenaries exhibited military behavior that hadn't been seen before in the country. They dramatically interlocked their shields so closely against enemy fire that they resembled a fish scale. The term is unique in Chinese literature. However, interlocking shields was one of the Roman army's signature moves, known as the testudo formation. And not only that, but at around the same time in China, a city named Liqian, the ancient Chinese word for Rome, was founded. Was this the final destination of those Roman soldiers who survived the battle at Harran? The theory is still unproven, but the Parthians did have a standard practice of employing captured soldiers as border guards, and by transferring the 10,000 legions to the eastern borders, they prevented any realistic chance of escape for the Romans, who likely would have simply accepted their new lot in life. Record of the soldiers vanish for about 17 years when the Battle of Suzi was fought as a Chinese army under Qin Tang assaulted a border town known today as Taraz, located in Kazakhstan. Chinese historians note that the defenders held their shields in a fish scale pattern, but the fight for the town was intense and the Chinese prevailed. The Chinese under the Han Dynasty at this point were near the height of their power. This battle represented their greatest westward expansion, and their victory was achieved in part because many of the locals defected to the Chinese out of fear. The Chinese were so impressed by these foreign warriors that they put them into another border town, this time guarding the border between China and Tibet, as Tibetan raids were not uncommon around this time. Anywhere from 100 to 1,000 or more soldiers established themselves in this town that was known by the Chinese as Liqian, Li Jin, which is pronounced as Legion. These men were known to use tools such as tree trunk counterweight construction devices and to reinforce the area into a square fort, a common sight in the Mediterranean, but quite rare in Asia. It seems these Romans lived peacefully in Liqian, and 2,000 years later, we have DNA evidence that over 50% of the villagers in modern-day Liqian have Caucasian ancestry, including green and blue eyes, increased average height, and other distinguishing characteristics, such as distinctly Roman noses. The people in the small village are aware and proud of their ancestry, celebrating the Romans and showing a fond interest in bulls, a heavily worshipped animal of Roman legions. A great many modern historians absolutely dismiss the story of the legions in China as more of a fairy tale than truth, though some prominent historians still argue that these sequences of events is quite possible and even the most probable of theories. Just because it is hard to believe tales does not make it untrue. In every reference from the Asian sources, the foreigners appear to be none other than the 10,000 legionnaires captured at Harran in Turkey. The only gap in knowledge is that the Romans transferred from Parthian control to Mongol control, as the Mongols held the town at the Battle of Suzi. It seems that either the Romans were captured and transported again, or more likely that they were sold as mercenaries. But what do you, the subscribers of the Lost History channel, think about this anyway? Comments below, and as always, thank you for watching.